Hello, and welcome to round 2 of the Parenting Roundabout podcast. I'm Terri Morrow, and I'm here with Catherine Halecko. Say hi, Catherine.
Hi, Terri.
Usually on this podcast, we talk about parenting issues, but once a week, Catherine and I like to get together to discuss TV, movies, books, and other entertainment topics because it's nice to talk about something other than parenting for a change. This week, a couple of our regular binge watches are taking a week off, so we will still be talking about Dancing with the Stars Juniors because those little kiddos are hanging on. And we're also going to have a challenge round this week of a new Netflix series about dogs called, in a huge stretch of imagination, Dogs.
Dogs.
Simple and easy to remember.
Yes, but not very search engine friendly in case you happen to be doing that.
At all. So first we're going to talk about the juniors, which had their semifinals this week. On Sunday night, and this was supposed to end with one of the 4 couples being eliminated, so we would have 3 for the semifinals. And at the very end, after 10 or 15 seconds of putting small children through the torture of wondering if they were going to get axed, they kept them all.
Yay!
That little bit of drama there at the end seemed unnecessary to me.
Mm-hmm.
And
it did.
There was no actual explanation for it. Was there a tie between the votes and the judges? Because everybody's score was pretty close.
Right.
Was that why? Was it because somebody got eliminated they didn't want to eliminate? It was weird.
Yeah. Was it that they finally heard, it's terrible to keep doing this to children every week?
But they still did it. Sky was still crying. They could have just said, hey, kids, guess what? We're not going to do this. But no. Put them through the psychological torture of expecting to hear their name called, and then let them off the hook.
Right.
I do not approve. This must be fixed.
All for the drama.
Yeah, don't do drama at the expense of small children. Mm-hmm. Just don't do it. Even medium-sized children.
Exactly.
Not good. I'm also seeing constant complaints on the Dancing with the Stars groups I'm in about the age range being inappropriate. And that, I'm wondering, I have problems with Mackenzie because she's a ringer, but I don't think that she's been dancing all that great.
Mm-hmm.
And she is older and therefore somewhat more sophisticated. She's only 14. She's not that old.
Right.
But I wonder at some point when you are competing against cutie pie little peanut girls, if being a big, mature-looking 14-year-old is possibly a disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
She just...
Well, you were kind of thinking that at the very first episode of this show, the very first girl that got sent home.
Right.
Was kind of in between age.
Yeah. So it could be, people seem to feel that it's unfair in her favor. And it may well be that she wins. She's one of the final 4. But if she doesn't, I wonder if you're sitting in the audience and you're seeing little Sky do an Argentine tango, just the cutest little teeny tiny perfect dancer. And then you see this person who's sort of the size of some of the pros. Maybe that doesn't work for her so well. I don't know. I certainly felt it last week with that Call Me Maybe number where she seemed to be kind of galumphing around. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it works out. I think they have a problem if she wins. But, because it just doesn't seem right.
Right.
But on the other hand, she's signed up for it. It's not her fault that they took her. She should have as good a chance as anybody.
Right.
But to me, despite all the hyperbole that went around the group dances, which were very enjoyable, the dance of the night was that tango that Sky and JT did. That was just fabulous. And she had tango face most of the time. Usually she has a huge smile. She had that serious look. She had that rose between her teeth. What more could you want?
Had those lifts and...
Yes. Yeah. Dancing much better than many, many adult contestants on Dancing with the Stars. So I think they're just... I think she's the best dancer. Ringers or no. But
right. And did you notice that Val put forward your suggestion that Sky and Ariana need a TV show together?
I did notice that.
That's what I've been saying, Val.
Exactly. I think they had just a very appealing bunch of kids on this.
Mm-hmm.
So, and boy, Miles, for having learned most of this on video while he was on the Blackish set, he did pretty great.
He did.
Yes. I like him a lot. I do still think the height differential between him and Riley is a problem. But, but they still look good. And he still dances very well. And
yeah, he really does.
Does not have the same, I'm 13 and several years older than these others, and I look much older. He looks about, close in age to Sky and Ariana.
Yeah, so exactly.
He slips through. So it was fun. I liked having the two dances. It was fun seeing them dance together. And
and I think it'll be fun seeing them dance with their pro.
Yes. And
which they're going to do next time.
Yeah, I meant to mention it last week, and they did it this week. I like the opening numbers with the pros in them. I think that's really fun. They did that last week, too. I like seeing them all dancing together, and it'll be fun if they do that as a specific number. But I really like I like so much about this. It just I don't understand how they cannot stick the landing and understand that you don't want to send your show off on crying children. You just they found such great ways to do everything else. To have kids partner kids, to have the pros mentor them, to have the judges be just, gentle and helpful and wonderful. And then they have to do the ending the same way they do it with the adults. I just don't get it. Why could they have not added their special juniors touch to that part too? There's very many easy ways they could have done it. We've talked about some here, and I'm sure
no reason not to.
The brain trust there could have come up with other ways. It's just so wrong for little kids and even medium-sized kids.
And even 13 and 14-year-olds.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. It's like 14-year-olds don't necessarily want to go through that either. So stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Exactly.
If this gets another chance, which I don't know that it will, because I don't think the ratings have been that super, but they got to work on that.
Yeah.
And I think they could also possibly have had maybe half as many kids and a shorter season. This has gone on for a pretty long time.
A little long.
Yeah. Yeah. But always fun to watch. And and it's really been fun to see the pros from Dancing with the Stars doing this in this different light. It's cute.
Yes.
We interrupt this podcast to remind you to please consider the free Radio Public app for all your Parenting Roundabout listening needs. If you listen to our podcast on the app, we'll get paid a little for each listen and more if you listen a lot.
It's a great way to financially support our podcast without having to actually spend, money. Now on to our challenge round.
Well, moving on to something I didn't find so cute, even though the title suggests that I should have. We watched the first episode of a new Netflix series called Dogs. This first episode was called The Kid with a Dog, and it was about therapy dogs it starts out being about one family, and then they kind of shoehorn another family into it. So it's service dogs for kids with seizures and other disabilities that could make use of an animal that would warn of health challenges and help provide a steadying influence both to mood and to physical walking and things like that. I expected that the episode would be about the dogs. How do they get trained? How do they pick a kid to go with a dog? How do they make the contacts between the kids and the dog? And instead it focused really hard on this one girl's family. Lots of really long shots of this girl. Just close up. I was really, really uncomfortable with it. Did you feel that at all? I mean, I'm really sensitive to disability things. And this child could not possibly have given consent to have herself filmed in that way. the sister, then they interview the sister, and it's obviously they're trying to make a narrative of, look how hard it is for her sister, and her sister puts up with all this stuff, and then her sister can't play with the dog, and they go outside with the sister, and they interview the sister and how upset she is. And these long shots, close-up shots of both girls, but especially of the girl who has seizures. I don't know if we're supposed to be wondering if she's having a seizure. Sometimes her face kind of goes blank. And I know there's, obviously she has grand mal seizures, but also there's something called absent seizures where your brain just kind of blips out for a short while. I didn't know if they were trying to, but it was so focused on the family and so focused on this girl as a child with a disability. And so, I mean, even though the mother was as upbeat as she possibly could be, the filmmaker was obviously trying to say, look how hard life is for these people. And that's a really touchy thing in the disability community. Mm-hmm. Number one, the focus on parents over the focus on the actual person with a disability. And number two, on parents putting their kids forward as, look at this sad situation. And there's something called inspiration porn or disability porn, which is basically the use of a person with a disability as sort of a fetish item for inspiration or pity. I just got a really strong vibe of that from this, even though, I didn't feel like it was more in the way the filmmaker focused on the subjects than it was necessarily in anything that was said. And there weren't enough dogs in it. There was hardly any dog. It's a show called Dogs. It's not a show called Poor Pitiable Children with Disabilities. It's a show called Dogs. Why wasn't the focus on the dog? I feel like they set out to do this story. We'll follow one of these families getting a dog. And then the filmmakers just got all, oh my gosh, look at this beautiful girl, and yet she's got all this problem. Oh, look at her looking, sadly into the camera. Look at her. How many times did they show her or hear her having a seizure or a terrible time with it? That's not appropriate. That's not entertainment. That's a personal thing. Would you like to have that on a Netflix documentary? Mm-hmm. When how old is she?
I know. I think she was like 11.
It's like she can't consent to that.
And she did look, it's hard to say, but, it seemed like she did look uncomfortable at times.
Yeah, I couldn't,
And I agree with you. I thought we were getting, here's how they train the dog and here's how they match them up and all that, which I think would have been more interesting, but I also think maybe has been done. I don't know.
I guess.
Yeah, it was.
The whole thing where, is this really the way they give out dogs? They get like 10 families in a room and they all introduce themselves and then they give them all their dogs. Honey, lay on the floor and pretend like you're having a seizure in front of all these strangers. What the heck is that?
Right.
No,
and the mom was like, don't you want to do it at home? Should we do this at home?
It was
and
so
she kept saying, no, I'll do it here.
I wonder if that's really the way they did that, or the filmmaker said, hey, let's get a whole bunch more families in here and let's see if anybody else has an interesting disability we can exploit. Oh, here's a little girl who likes to dance. Isn't her story tragic? Maybe it's just that I'm sensitive to this stuff and I read a lot of complaints about it, and maybe it just hit me at a bad time, but these are children, It's exploitive, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Did it feel that way to you?
Yeah, it did. It did feel uncomfortable and just like a strange choice that they were making.
Yeah.
And I mean, this series, I think, the stories are very, very different.
Yeah.
Like the next one, I haven't watched it yet, but it's a Syrian refugee who is in Europe somewhere. I think he's in Germany, and his dog is back in Syria, and he's trying to get the dog. That's all I know about it. So I don't know.
Human tragedy. We're going to lots of close-ups of his sad face, I predict.
Right.
If there's not dogs in at least 3/4 of the shots of this movie, of this documentary, just don't call it dogs. Sad humans.
Right.
That's what it should be called.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm not even saying that these people are necessary. It's just, they're just showing one part of their life. And, I keep thinking about something like this. And I mean, I'm guilty of this in my own stuff of writing about my kids and all. But when she's older and watching this, how's she going to feel about it? How's she going to feel hearing her mother talk about how hard things are and her sister talk about how hard things are? It's fraught.
Right. Yeah.
So, which is, not to say if my kid had wanted a service dog and they'd say, hey, do you want to be in a documentary? And I had been put on camera talking about my kids, I might have said things that are inappropriate and I, might not let people film them, but I'm glad that I didn't have that opportunity. And now that I look back, I'm glad I wouldn't have done anything didn't do anything like that, because it's just seeing it. I felt like I needed to hug a dog afterwards.
They really played up that piece about the sister and how there was this huge speech about how you have to protect the bond and no one else can feed the dog and no one else can play with the dog and no one else can give him treats and stuff. And she said, most of you have probably been thinking that this is going to be a family dog. Like, well, if they've been waiting for a year for it, haven't you been telling them what to expect?
Yes.
Why is this a surprise piece of information given to them here and now?
Why wouldn't you have said, please bring only the child who will be bonding with the dog. Please leave your other children at home.
Right.
Well,
and then
the
later
girl is sitting right there. Why don't you take them out of the room? Take the siblings out of the room. Do something. You don't give that speech when the kid is sitting right there with apparently a camera in her face.
Right.
What the heck?
And then,
what are the adults
later,
thinking?
They show the entire neighborhood playing fetch with the dog.
Yes.
So, did they just decide that it's fine?
Yeah.
Did they decide to disregard that advice? Or that it wasn't necessary?
Odd.
Or, what?
Yeah. I had issues. So, I don't think I'll be watching another. If you watch future episodes, Catherine, if any of them are actually about dogs, you'll let me know, right?
I will let you know. I still have a couple downloaded, so I can check them out and see.
Talk about lack of truth in advertising.
Exactly.
Very, very weird. Well, next week we will finish up with Dancing with the Stars Junior. Finally, sadly, I will not have Sky on my TV anymore. But I bet she will be.
But maybe not for long.
I think we'll be seeing her again. Right. And so we'll see the finals of that. The West Wing Weekly will, we think, be back with the first episode of Season 6, which is titled NSF Thurmont. And we will also, if Alan Sepinwall is to be believed, have another episode of The Good Place, which we think is titled Janet's, with S in parentheses. And that is going to be it for our Round 2 today. Please subscribe to our Parenting Roundabout podcast so you won't miss any of our episodes, including our daily speed rounds and weekly group chats. As always, you can find recaps, links, and an opportunity to comment on our website at parentingroundabout.com. Goodbye, Catherine.
Bye, Terry.
Goodbye, everybody.